There's a lot of things that we're putting in food now, and it's to make us addicted. So a lot of what we put in food is an addictive substance. The other thing is mouthfeel, texture, taste, that sort of thing. And as consumers, I think we all demand quite a lot these days, but I don't agree with what it's doing to our health. And
Absolutely.
I think there's an awful lot in food that really doesn't need to be there, but they're fillers and bulkers.
Good morning and welcome back to the London Food Network podcast, proudly sponsored by Embrace AI Consultancy, where we help food and hospitality businesses scale smarter with automation and AI-powered growth. Today, I'm finally met with Sally. Been looking forward to this one, highly anticipated podcast. So Sally's an incredible entrepreneur behind multiple thriving businesses. She's the founder of Simply Ice Cream, the award-winning Artisan brand loved across the UK. And also the creator of My Doctor's Recipe, which is a functional food company focused on gut health. On top of that, if that wasn't enough, she also runs a catering business and a successful Airbnb. So we're going to explore how she built these brands, how Sally manages so many moving parts, and what she's learned about growth, resilience, and the future of food. Sally, without further ado, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
Thank you for finally coming on. I know we had a bit of trouble getting you on with multiple hurdles along the way, but here we are.
Yeah.
So really happy to finally be podcasting you, Sally. You know what? I like to get to the bottom of how you've managed to create this entrepreneurship empire and, you know, how it all started really. So do you want to take us back to the beginning?
Yeah, so I actually trained as a chef when I was still at school. So when I was doing my A-levels, I also had a day at college a week and trained to be a chef. I then went out to Australia. And I lived in Australia for nearly 6 years, 5.5, 6 years, and trained as a chef over in Sydney. My mother actually set up a catering business in 1986. So there's always been that sort of background of food in my life. And when I came back from Australia, her business partner wanted to retire. So I ended up helping her with the catering when I got back from Australia. I started a law degree. So it wasn't ever my intention to carry on with catering, but I came back from Australia and I ended up running a pub, had a health and beauty clinic, so I was teaching aerobics, 15 step classes a week.
Jesus.
Catering, yeah, the catering, and I had an advertising business at the time as well. So it was really hectic. I then met my husband, was told I couldn't have children, and so I applied to do my law degree. And we got married in the August, and I applied in the January to go and start in the September the following year. And when I started my law degree, I was 7 months pregnant, having been told I couldn't have children. I then ended up having 4. So it was all a bit chaotic. But while I was doing my law degree, she was quite a good baby, so she slept quite a lot, so I was able to juggle it. I still had the pub, but I got out of that quite quickly, because at the time everyone was smoking and it just wasn't conducive to being pregnant and having babies in a pub. And by the end of my second year doing my law degree, I was pregnant with Matt, and I suddenly thought, why am I doing that? I was still doing the catering on the side because that was weekends mainly. And I thought, actually, that works around the kids. I think the catering has always been there in the background. So I was working weekends. My husband was in London, but he had the kids on the weekends, and it just worked. So that was the one that I stuck with. But we gave up the pub. I gave up the health and beauty clinic and the 15 classes a week, because that wasn't conducive to being pregnant. And so the catering worked around the kids really well. But I think what became very obvious as we had our 4th child was that I was working every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Robin was in London during the week. They thought we were single parents. The idea was formed that we would create a product we could sell into retail. And very naively, we thought we would then have our weekends back. But that never happened. So, yeah, that's the background.
My Lord, I thought your life was hectic now, but it sounds like it's peaceful compared to back then.
I mean, yeah.
And 4 children when you got told you wouldn't have any children. My gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was bizarre because I literally had an operation in the January, and it was my fourth operation. I suffered from endometriosis from probably about 14, and the consultant came in after the operation and said, so as and when you're ready, come back to me. We'll see whether we can do IVF, but you're not going to have children naturally. And when I went for my 6-week check, I was pregnant. That was a complete shocker because actually my husband was in the army at the time. He was based in Bassingbourn in Cambridge, and we got married. And for the first 8 months of our marriage, we didn't live together. So we saw each other on weekends. The chances, I don't know, it just happened. And it was a lovely surprise. But I was pregnant before we started living together properly after we got married. So it was 8 months before we actually lived together after we got married, because at the time when we got married, we knew he was going to be coming out of the army, and it didn't make sense for me to give up those 4 businesses I was running to go, and I had a house in Canterbury as well, to then go and live in barracks for 6 months, 8 months, and then come back and start again. We just decided very early on that I would stay in Canterbury and he would stay in Cambridge, and we'd see each other when we could on weekends. So, yeah.
Well, you certainly didn't follow the kind of pre-designed path, did you? You carved yourself a path all throughout your life, clearly.
Well, yeah. I think with most sort of entrepreneurs, you just fly by the seat of your pants most of the time. And you create opportunities as you go along. And I think that's what we've done really over the years.
Wow. That's an incredible story, Sally. And let's fast forward then. You've gone through this incredibly hectic but giving time. 4 kids when you got told none would come. That's from an emotional level, that must have been quite because you must have gone through so many emotions, right? To have gone through the kind of not being able to, being told not being able to, and then all of a sudden here you are having a child.
Yeah. I mean, it was a strange, to be honest, I think it all happened so quickly after having been told I couldn't, that actually I never had an issue with it. I can remember coming around from the anaesthetic and being, he was there and told me, so I was still quite woozy. So I don't know that it actually went in. And I think with medical advancement, you're always thinking, oh, we'll get there. We'll sort it when it happens. But we weren't thinking about having children at that particular moment. We weren't living together. Although we were married, we weren't actually living together. So it wasn't on the radar. It was a bit of a shock, really, but a lovely shock. And to then go on and within 5 years, we had 4 children.
You didn't mess around, did you, Sally? My God. No. Were any of them twins, or were they all just one?
No, so there's 18 months between all of them. So it just,
I can tell your husband was in the military then. It was all a bit of a...
and actually, I think he'd always said we can have 3. I really wanted 4. And
why 4? Where does that come from?
Did you have no, I've just got one brother and a stepbrother. But no, I don't know. And then we had Jess and then Matt. I think if Tash had been a boy, we'd have probably stopped there. But Robin wanted 2 boys, so we then went on. And it was...
And it was a boy?
Yeah.
The 4th was a boy? Look at that. Look,
I know.
I mean, well,
that was military
about the
position,
university writing. You must have done some good deeds in your previous lives.
I think, it was the military command, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Get in line. You better deliver me a boy.
No, when I was pregnant with Will, both Robin and Matthew were just like, if it's another girl, you're putting it back.
No pressure.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. So so you've gone through an enormous amount of changes, from law to catering to working in a pub, beauty salon, to living in Australia, training there as a chef, coming back, marrying a person in the army, getting married, not living together, having a child or getting pregnant while still not living together.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like most people's kind of like 4 generations worth of stories into one.
Yeah.
So Simply Ice Cream. So that's your kind of, I guess, bread and butter in terms of your current businesses. I mean, that was your...
The idea with Simply Ice Cream was, so with the catering, I was catering about 80 weddings a year at one point. And what I was finding was that sort of the brides or the guests were coming into the service tent or the kitchen, wherever I was working, and asking where they could buy the ice cream. So that's where that was, I think, because we had so much demand for it, it was like, maybe this would work.
Oh, so you would make ice cream as part of the wedding?
As part of the dessert offering, yeah. And I think I had no sort of knowledge of the retail sector and selling and how difficult it actually is at the time. And actually, I always say to people now, if they ask me what I'd do differently, I wouldn't do frozen. That's just every aspect of retail has issues. Glass jars smash, chocolate blooms, crisps get soggy in packets if they're in the wrong temperature and that sort of thing. So there's always elements of difficulty in any sector. But I think frozen just adds another layer. As it's sort of
the margin of error is fairly small. That's why. Really. And also ice cream, especially the way. Let's walk us through your ice cream, Sally, because you talk about it as if it's just any old ice cream, but it's clearly not. So tell me about your ice cream and why were people so curious about buying it off the...
Yeah, it's a handmade product, so we literally hand whisk it. It's also just double cream, milk, sugar, and then fresh strawberries. So it's a really natural ice cream. There's no preservatives, additives, flavors, syrups, that sort of thing. Everything we put into it is real food.
You make it sound like, because we are led to believe that all these ingredients we see in the ice cream packet is just because you have to have it in order to make it, right?
I think why not? There's an element of emulsifiers and stabilizers and things. Stabilizers, preservatives. Large food manufacturers now put preservatives in everything because we all demand this sort of shelf life. We want things to be easy for us, so we don't want to have to go to the shops every day. And so therefore the shelf life is prolonged on all sorts of things these days that actually, one, probably don't need to be, but two, aren't good for us. So I think because I trained as a chef and because I've always cooked from scratch, I think that meant that I was keen not to add that sort of thing into my food. And I think with ice cream, obviously it's a frozen product, a freezer will preserve it for an amount of time. So I think there's a lot of things that we're putting in food now. And it's to make us addicted. So a lot of what we put in food is an addictive substance. The other thing is mouthfeel, texture, taste, that sort of thing. And as consumers, I think we all demand quite a lot these days. But I don't agree with what it's doing to our health. And Absolutely. I think there's an awful lot in food that really doesn't need to be there. But they're fillers and bulkers. And
let's talk about that, because what shelf life do you give your frozen ice cream then?
So the ice cream has a year on it. Yeah, it has been
a long shelf life, isn't it?
I think if it's a frozen product, we can do that. I think we've had it tested for up to 3 years. So microbiologically, it's fine. It's a frozen product, but I think even in a freezer, anything deteriorates. We tend to make to order to within sort of a couple of weeks, so that if we're sending out product to a farm shop or deli or Waitrose, whatever, they have a year's shelf life or 11 months minimum, so that gives them time to sell it. And it's still, I think sort of food will deteriorate in a freezer, even though it's frozen.
Well, that's an important point though, right? Because in food, that's the thing. There's the kind of legal boundaries, but then there's also the actual quality and authenticity of the product, and how you will get to a point where, yes, it's legal to continue to sell, but then you've dropped the quality so that it's not quite the product you produced in the first place, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, it is difficult because we're all really, really busy with our lives these days and people want convenience. But I still think you can have, especially frozen, you can still have convenience without having all those additional things that you really don't need in food.
I think given the choice, if I was given the choice of buying a tub of ice cream that's got a year or less, or one with a year or more, but the compromise is all these things that don't need to be in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'd buy something even less than a month, really, as a consumer.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, let's be honest, that tub of ice cream is going to get polished off, isn't it? Watching a movie on a Friday night. So,
but I think it's only now that people are starting to become really aware of what actually is happening within our food. So I think there is a growing sort of awareness that actually we need to look at what we're eating and what we're actually putting into our food. But it's been hidden for decades now. But I think also it's like everything, isn't it? We invent something, vaccines or whatever. We don't know what the repercussions are for years and years. I think the Ozempic craze at the moment is really interesting because we have
you're already seeing all the cracks though, right? You're already seeing all the problems that are happening from it.
But I think, it's a toss up, isn't it? Because that is helping the NHS, or hopefully helping the NHS, because they won't have all the sort of difficulties with overweight and all the things that come with that. But we just don't know yet what it's going to bring on the flip side. And it's the same in food. I think all these things that we've been using to stabilize and emulsify and fill food to make it cheaper, we just don't, we're beginning to see what's happening. And I think
all these trade-offs, isn't it? That's the kind of way that it is. Every time that we do something, we're trading it for something else, right? The lovely bit of healthy ice cream, all of a sudden, to get a longer shelf life, you're taking away some of the healthy elements and just to gain more shelf life. And then the texture and the flavor and the all these things as well, like you say, changing it to try and enhance it from its natural kind of form is going to have an impact. There's always that trade-off, isn't there?
Yeah,
sad, isn't it, really? That's the least, because it doesn't need to be that way, like you just said, and you've proved, obviously, with your product, that it doesn't actually need to be that way at all. And
no. I think it's different. I think, so we've always said with our ice cream, it is very different to other ice creams. It's not machine made, so it's not made with skim milk powders and water. It's not pumped full of air. And, you have to taste it to realize how different it is to what people perceive ice cream to be. So I think for us, it's always been really important to get samples out to people so that they can actually taste the difference. But I think with a lot of foods, so unless you put things alongside each other, you can't actually, because we all perceive what something should taste like. Yeah. For some people who are, if they like Mr. Whippy, they might not like our ice cream because it is very rich and dense, but it is very natural. And Mr. Whippy is an interesting concept, isn't it?
They've obviously done very well for themselves. But
absolutely, absolutely.
I guess with positioning as well with the product. And
but how much dairy it actually has in is
the thing is producing it at volume so that you bring the price from so low. But again, the trade-off or the compromise, if you like, is creating a product that's probably nothing to do with what it's supposed to be. Right?
And it's a bit like chocolate bars at the moment, because a lot of chocolate bars now do not have enough cocoa content to actually be able to say they're chocolate. So they're having to change packaging to reflect the fact that it's not actually a chocolate bar anymore, because the majority of the ingredients aren't chocolate.
Madness. It really is madness.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think people are becoming a lot more aware now. And not quickly enough. It'd be nice if people adopted it more. But oftentimes it's because we see it in the seafood business I run. We see it all the time. People will come into the store and they'll want something that's wild, line caught from a small boat, minimal impact on the sea. I say, great, no problem. That's the price for it.
Yeah.
And then you compare that to, let's say, a farmed product or something that's not quite as high in its kind of ethical provenance, but the price is much lower. People will usually choose the lower cost option. Not all the time, but the price difference does make a difference to people. And I think in this country especially, because you don't see that in Europe. When you go to France and in fact most of Europe, it's always the quality over the price. And that's why you don't see so much of this problem, I don't think, in the rest of Europe.
No.
Because here we tend to prioritize food differently for whatever reason. I think people are more inclined to spend money on drinking than they are to spend an extra couple of quid on getting something that's actually really nice quality. And the culture, I guess there's a cultural change or difference. I'm not too sure.
I think they probably cook a bit more in Europe than we do here as well. I don't know what the statistics are around that, but I think if you go to a French or an Italian family, they tend to be cooking. And I think we are leading such busy lives. And I think it's very difficult, isn't it? Because firstly, we've taken away home economics in schools predominantly, so people don't know how to cook. And there is such an array from really cheap to expensive ready meals these days. And they're just so easy, aren't they, to bung in a microwave? And it's a time saver. And we're all so time poor now that is what we've become used to. And I think it's really easy I think human beings on the whole have addictive personalities. A lot of people have addictive personalities. And we can see that in our phone use, doom scrolling. But food is another one where you get so used to just banging something into a microwave. But actually frying up a piece of fish with some veggies, it takes 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah. People all the time, like fish in particular. It's like the ultimate fast food. It requires almost no cooking time.
Yeah.
In fact, you can have it raw most of the time. So, it's a really low entry level kind of product to actually cook.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult, isn't it? Because people don't have the money. And we actually were with Southern Co-op with the ice cream. And at one point we went Co-op National. But it's really difficult to go into a co-op and you've quite often got those 5 for £5 deals going on. There's always ice cream in them. So why would you buy a tub of ice cream for 5-6 quid when you can get it as part of the deal for £1? And so I think that's where the bigger manufacturers have the monopoly, because they do it as a loss leader, but it pulls people in and you recognise that brand. Even subconsciously, you're going to go for that next time when it's not on special. So I think there's a lot of layers to the food industry and how we market and how we pull people in.
I mean, that's a good point there. And so how do you navigate that with Simply Ice Cream then? Because I guess the placement of where you are stocked has a massive impact, right? Because if you are in a co-op, then, the co-ops are going to attract a particular kind of person that's not necessarily quality-led. They're probably more convenience-led, price-led, than actually trying to seek out something that's a little bit more...
Yeah. I think food, I know when you sit down with marketeers and they say, so here's your consumer, and you look at your AB1s and all that sort of thing, and it's, yes, there is an element of that when you have a sort of premium food, but I think with ice cream it covers every sector of society. People are coming to, we supply some zoos. Kids are going to have an ice cream when they go to the zoo. They're going to have an ice cream when they go to the theatre. It doesn't matter where you sit. I think ice cream's a treat. I think we're quite lucky in that respect. But I think it is a luxury product. It's not, you can get very cheap ice creams in the same way that you can get cheap bread or expensive artisan bread. And I think it is just a personal choice, isn't it? And how much money you actually have in your pocket as to whether you will buy premium products. I think for us, when we first set up, it was always our target market was always going to be farm shops and delis and independents. I think so that the supermarkets are tough to crack because you are up against the big mass manufacturers who have very deep pockets for marketing and very recognised brands. If you go into the supermarket, especially with ice cream, you're up against maybe 20, 30 different brands. Whereas in a farm shop, you might only have 1 or 2 brands in there.
But also a very different client base, because people that will go into a farm shop are going there to find things they won't find in a supermarket. Yeah. They want to go there to get the actual... And invest, because farm shops usually will be more expensive than going to a store, but they want to go there because they want something quality. They want something a little bit different, a little bit premium. Yeah. And how do you find the ice cream business in terms of growth? And must be back to your thing about frozen. And I just think distribution must be a nightmare, because of course to access the UK wide kind of market, you've got to rely on couriers and the packaging and making sure they do their job, which you and I both know that's
especially this time of year.
Absolutely. Well, peak summer for you as well, right? If it's frozen, that must be difficult.
I think we probably have less issues in the summer because obviously they're not as busy. I think at the moment, we actually had an email on Monday to say I think there are about 8 or 10 postcodes they're not delivering to at the moment because there's a massive backlog. So that slightly scuppered this week's web sales. But we pack in dry ice and send out to people's houses. So on the whole, that works really well. We have the odd hiccup, but I think any courier has that issue at times.
Well, I think they're all just they all have their weaknesses and strengths, but ultimately there's no clear winner, if you like. I don't know, at least we've not come across a clear winner.
No. So on the whole, that works really well for us. We actually only started doing that post-pandemic, and we worked with a frozen firm to start with, but then brought it back in-house. That means we can get it all over the UK. We supply ourselves with frozen vans across the southeast, and my focus for next year is to find some sort of wholesalers, distributors further afield so that we can actually get it out. And we also have a franchise model. So
let's talk more about that actually, because you never know, there might be someone listening that thinks, wow, that'd be great. So
we launched the franchise model a couple of years ago, and we have one franchisee in Suffolk, and that was really... we decided to sort of let it run with her and just see how that worked. So she's our guinea pig, really, to then roll it out. So again, next year is a focus for me to make sure we get more franchisees across the country.
How do you get a franchisee? What kind of person are you looking for?
In actual fact, to start with, you can do it alongside your day job, because initially you'll be building up those sort of farm shop delis that take the product.
They don't hold the stock. They're just
So
selling it.
they do hold the stock. So we make it and dispatch to them. So they do need a walk-in freezer or a number of freezers to store stock. But they then distribute out to farm shops and delis, theatres, restaurants in their area. So they would get a county as such, or an area, depending on where they were. And they can also then go and do events themselves. So I know Lucy, she does an awful lot of events. She goes to farmers market. She does things like to the Suffolk shows. And so you obviously get a bigger margin if you're doing it direct to consumers yourself.
Right.
But I think so we've worked it on our model in the early years so that we know that if you get 10 farm shops on board, you should get roughly 2 orders a month in the summer and 1 in the winter. And so you have a minimum order. So, so we've worked a sort of sheet so that you know exactly what you'll be getting. Can you hear this dog scratching behind me? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I was listening to what you were saying. Actually, no,
I'm very aware that there's a dog scratching
model,
to get him.
the model sounds quite interesting, and I guess the way I'm curious about it is because we live in a time, right, where money is tight in most people's households.
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to find some form of side hustle, right? Some form of extra income you can earn in between your current job and responsibilities, or maybe mums out there or dads even that are stay-at-home dads or mums, and they just want to try and it sounds like this could be quite a good idea for somebody to take on, right? Because the logic is simple, I presume. You're just really getting the product out to places, so you're really reaching out to put people in your county to stock the products, and then once you get some clients on board, you just need a little bit of storage to store the stuff and distribute from there, right?
You do. You will also need a freezer van, so there is a little bit of investment to start with. But that
can I be devil's advocate here? Can I, if I was coming to you, Sally, and I'd say, okay, look, how about I take over this county and you guys just drop ship? So I'll sell the product and you guys get it to them.
The cost is prohibitive, I think. So we do that. So we make a dog ice cream and supply Pets Corner. We do ship to retailers from us. I think it's important to have that personal touch with the counties and farm shops and things you're supplying, because I think especially independents, they like to know who they're dealing with. And I think the other issue is that the minimum order is actually probably going to be at least 2 to 4 boxes worth. So dry ice, the actual cost of delivery is about £24 with the poly boxes, the dry ice, that sort of thing. So actually it wouldn't work.
Blimey.
Yeah.
Such a high cost, isn't it? Such a shame.
Yeah. As the dry ice is expensive, but if we had bigger volumes, we could probably get that down a little bit, but it would still, so courier charges, the poly boxes, the cardboard items,
The problem with that as well, Sally, is that even if you get, let's say, 1 out of 10 parcels with a problem, that kind of eliminates your margin completely, doesn't it? Because the margins are so low by the time you've actually done all the work and got the product out.
Yeah.
That's what we found. It was such a heartbreaking kind of period once upon a time where we were sending out all these parcels, and with wholesale you got such little crumbs in the end by the time you do your numbers, right?
Yeah.
And you get 1 parcel missing or broken or whatever, and that's literally killed off the entire margin for the last 10 orders.
Well, I think we worked out the other day, it's about a 4% margin, which is tiny. But the reason that we are doing it is we want people to be able to have the ice cream across the UK. So I think that was why we did it. It was important that, and actually I think as it grows, and it is growing month on month, that margin will come up a little bit. But for people, I think interestingly, people who work in skincare, for instance, your margins are 200-300% sometimes. Food has always been a really low margin, which is the other issue with the food industry, because
and high risk as well. That's the other one. You've got quite strict parameters to work within, and you've got obviously quite a lot of due diligence to follow as well, paperwork, traceability, all kinds of different.
We've just got halal accreditation as well, which is great, because I think that was important, especially for my doctor's range.
I'll tell you what, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So we talked about Simply Ice Cream. We've talked about catering. Let's go into my doctor's recipe. So what is it?
So my doctors was founded by an oncologist, the founder who sadly lost his wife to cancer. John was her oncologist. And then Alan Rosenthal is a chef, a trained chef. So they actually set the business up pre-pandemic, but obviously pandemic put pay to everything, didn't it? And so post-pandemic, they came to see me to do an ice cream. So we developed an ice cream. Initially, it was simply ice cream's recipe with the addition of a patented premix of vitamins and minerals and protein. But actually for oncology, you need much lower sugar. We then developed a range that reduced the sugar by half. So that's the Nutri-Ice is very much geared towards oncology and patients going through treatment. And obviously ice cream is a really good one. One, because it can build you up while you're going through treatment, but it's easy to swallow. And I think for a lot of people going through treatment, they lose their sense of taste. They find it very difficult to swallow because the treatment, radiotherapy and things, causes your throat to be really sore. So I think, so that was the focus initially. And then NutriScoop is a higher sugar content, but it's still lower than some. And that has additional protein and the vitamin mix so that you're getting all of that goodness in a small pot of ice cream. So for care homes, anyone suffering from malnutrition for any reason, it's got 300-400 calories per pot. So it is quite high calorie, but it's very natural again. So we're not putting any sort of emulsifiers, stabilizers, preservatives or nasties in it. So it's a natural product with the benefit of having these vitamins and minerals and protein. And then there's a children's range, Small Heroes. And again, that's for children who predominantly, I suppose, are not terribly well and need building up. It's not necessarily something you would feed them just as a treat. But I think the focus on my doctors, we're also in development with sort of soups and drinks, and we have some protein coffee that's already live. What we're trying to do is create a range of products that are very natural, that taste good and are good for you and help, when you're undergoing treatment or need building up. So I think even fitness gyms, if you're trying to build muscle, to have something that's slightly higher in calories and protein is really helpful. Obviously, if you're trying to lose weight, not so much, but I think when you're trying to bulk and things within a gym, they're perfect for that sort of thing as well.
And then you've got the Airbnb.
Yes. So for years, when we first set up Simply Ice Cream, obviously I had the catering business that, although we predominantly went and did weddings and functions in other people's houses or venues, the kitchen has always been accredited by the HOs. And so when we first set up the ice cream, we did it from our kitchen. Looking back, it was chaos in terms of we put the kids to bed and then Robin and I would make ice cream from 9 to 1 in the morning. And we'd do that 2 days a week while we had our day jobs. And then I think for the first 3 years, it was quite a slow organic growth because obviously I was still doing sort of 80 weddings a year. And then in 2008, Waitrose approached us and we listed with them. So I then basically took over a third of the house and made that into a production unit. And I did that for two reasons. One, because I wanted to be around for the kids. I didn't want to be in a factory space and not here. And then I employed mums. So we worked between 9 and 3, so we could work around the school hours and pick our kids up. And so holidays are slightly interesting because I think Jess at the age of 10 was looking after about 10 children. And where the production unit was, we had big glass windows and doors and we could see them running around the garden while we were making ice cream. So it was a bit chaotic, but we built the business over the years from home. And Robin used to come back from London saying we're becoming a commercial site here. And we did at one. So by the time we moved, we had 3 storage sheds at the bottom of the garden. We had a big storage shed that we'd turned into an office space. A third of the house was production. And then we had 3 big walk-in freezers on the drive. So it was complete chaos and it didn't feel like home ever. We'd looked at moving to a factory space a number of times, but firstly, I think Brexit was the first time it was scuppered. And then the pandemic was the second time. And then I bit the bullet 3.5 years ago and we moved to a factory site. So when we then moved, we had all these buildings at home on site. And I was like, what do we do with those? Do we demolish them? Which seemed a big waste. And so we turned them into Airbnbs. We moved my mother into the production unit of the house. So she has an annex now. And then we've got 4 Airbnbs that we converted from office spaces and packaging sheds. So
Wow.
there we go. That seemed a good idea at the time. In reality, it's really hard work. And I had no idea. Yeah. We've only been running them for about, one of them for 2 years, the other 3 for 18 months. This year, I've actually found someone to help with the cleaning. But yeah, and some ironing. I hate ironing. So yeah, but I didn't realize how much work was involved, especially if you're only doing sort of 2-night stays. And this year we've had a lot of that, but there's back to back. You could be changing beds 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, 4 times a week? Oh, yeah, because you got 4 different ones, right?
No. 4 times a week per Airbnb.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you don't have...
Yeah.
So you don't have longer ones. They tend to be more kind of short.
Last year we had quite a lot of sort of 1 to 2 weeks. This year, I think people are getting away for two nights at a time. Or what we tend to find here, because there's quite a lot of wedding venues in the area. So we get wedding guests Friday, Saturday, and then we get people working around the area for the rest of the week.
Okay. It's a good income stream. It helps, I presume, pay the bills.
Yeah, I think with that at the moment, we're obviously paying back the outlay of converting them. But yeah, eventually, I suppose we did it as a sort of, it's a retirement sort of income, I think. Because I think as self-employed, I don't know, I've probably not been very good at thinking about pensions and futures and that sort of thing. And I think as self-employed, things like in the pandemic, directors didn't get any furlough pay, which fair enough. But actually, that was really tough for everyone, I think. And I think we all took out bounce back loans and things, which were great at the time. We all thought but actually everyone's now challenged with paying them back, or a business went under, so they didn't pay them back. But I think it is a retirement plan, really, as far as the Airbnbs are concerned.
And what's the kind of future plans then? How are you going to... What are your areas of priority here? So you've got 4 different things going on that I know of. Maybe you've got some more up your sleeve somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I still do a little bit of catering, mainly funerals and teas and things rather than big sit-down weddings. I think I'm not very good at saying no. But I also think with funerals, the last thing people need to be worrying about is if they're wrong catering and they can't do it, they've got to find another one. So I never say no to a funeral, which sounds awful to say. I've never seen it, but I think it's important that people don't have to worry about that sort of thing. So the catering, I probably do 8-10 a year, so not lots and lots. The Airbnbs obviously they're running themselves with a little bit of input. The ice cream, we're always looking to build on the ice cream. It's been really challenging I'd probably say actually since Brexit, it's been really challenging to run a business, and I think it's been a roller coaster, but we're still here.
What changed? What changed from Brexit in terms of ice cream production and distribution?
I think Brexit scuppered any export we were doing at the time. And I think what people didn't realise was Brexit brought with it an overnight 30% increase in costs for no apparent reason, actually. But we suddenly had costs going up by 30%. It's happened a lot over the last sort of 10 years. Cocoa failed. Last year, cocoa went up we were paying $3.56 a kilo, and it went up to $15.60. Wow. Which it's a lot. I think it's a little bit more than that at the moment. It's gone up again recently. Yeah, and this is where it's very evident in the supermarkets when you look at bars of chocolate. They're really thin now, and when you look at the cocoa content, it's much reduced because people can't afford to put it in. And an awful lot of those chocolate bars are now not called chocolate. They're chocolate flavored or something they have to put on them now. I think the public is hoodwinked a little bit by mass manufacturers because they don't realise that something's being reduced in size until someone points it out. So you don't necessarily notice. The thickness of a chocolate bar is probably half what it used to be. A certain well-known brand. There are little things that they do, instead of putting 5 in a pack, they'll put 4 in a pack but charge the same price. But it's all because the costs of ingredients over the last few years has gone through the roof for a lot of things. And there are reasons, things like the vanilla crop failed, the monsoons or whatever. But actually, once they go up, they rarely come back down to the price that they were. Vanilla years ago became more expensive than saffron. It's never really come down. I think at one point we were paying £220 a litre. And it's come down to about 80. So that has come down, but it used to be about 26. I think it's been challenging to run a food business, but I think moving to the factory was a good move. Finally, it's off-site and we have a better work-life balance than we did when it was here, because I would quite often be sitting in the office at midnight. Now I try and leave the factory and come back, and even though I'm still on email, I'm not doing the hours that I was doing. Obviously, a factory space has more costs than your home. We didn't have rent and rates here. And we have that electricity went through the roof with Ukraine, and we were paying £800 a month. It went to 3,000 when we moved. So it's an additional cost that you don't factor in necessarily when you're doing your budget for the year, because it's an unknown. I think the business has grown over the last 3 years, but we want to grow it further. And obviously the My Doctor's Recipe is a startup that hopefully over the next couple of years will gain some traction. They're great products. It's a fantastic idea. And the studies that we had done, the clinical trials we've done in hospitals, show that they work. We're hopeful that both those businesses will grow over the next few years.
Sounds like you got your hands full for the time being. What's going to be your plan to with the ice cream? So simply ice cream. That's my wording, man. What's your kind of tactics for generating more sales and reducing your costs?
I have always worked with consultants. Over the years, I've always had mentors or consultants. We built our operations with a consultant. I think it's really important to do that, to work with people that can help you grow your business. Because I think when you set up a business, you don't know. There are so many different aspects to running a business. And although I'd always had my own businesses or worked with people that were fairly either startup or small business, I think you can't be a marketeer and an accountant and an operations, and there's so many aspects of running a business. You learn really fast as you go along, but I think to have somebody else come in and say, actually, look, try this, or have you thought about this, or let's check the figures. So at the moment, I have someone who works with me on finance all the time, just to just make sure that we are as lean as we possibly can. And I think over the last 3 years, especially because we've had all these extra costs, we've had to be really careful about how we run the business and just look at being as lean as possible without compromising on the quality. And that's key to me. Throughout all these increases in costs and things, we haven't compromised on our quality. So I think going forward, where we need to focus is sales. And I think we know that we've got everything else in place. So we just need more sales to grow the business effectively. And obviously, as more sales doesn't necessarily mean more operational costs, because if everything's in place, that's how you grow a business. It's always sales, isn't it? And I think so we talked about AI and how that's impacting businesses and how that can help. So that's something we're probably going to look to explore. I think, for a lot of businesses, it's an unknown, isn't it? It's new, and it's probably quite, I don't know, is it scary or challenging? I don't know. I think there's a lot to learn, and it's moving at such a fast pace that actually you implement something and actually it's a little bit like iPhones, isn't it? How often do they bring out a new iPhone and you just think, do I really need that? But I think the way that technology is advancing, if you don't implement it as a business, you're going to get left behind. So I think that's probably something we need to look at for next year. And just Yeah. Part of it's a wing and a prayer, isn't it, with any business? You just hope you're doing the right thing and keep moving forward. I think what people don't realise is that running a small business takes a huge amount of hours in a day. And I think that's why so many small businesses fail, because people will leave a job, set up their business and not realise, it's a 16-hour day for a long time. And it's only lastly that we've been able to reduce that slightly.
Well, for sure, Sally, like speaking from experience, like adopting AI and automation is absolutely the way to go at the moment, because there are many opportunities of all kinds of different things out there that do help a lot. And the only thing I could say, the only caveat to that is I think people oversell the whole AI dream as if it's some magical pill that you implement and that's how you don't have to do anything ever again. I think really AI at this point at least is more of a hybrid model. I think you've got to have a really good, robust AI system, great. But at the end of the day, it still needs to be led by humans that have experience within that actual sector.
Yeah.
And obviously with your company, you want to lead it a certain way. It's not a case of just getting any old AI solution out there and implementing it and expecting it to all of a sudden overnight change everything. But what I think AI really can provide is just an extension of your own capacity.
Yeah.
And also a huge reduction of admin. And that in itself, to me, at least in my business and my consultancy in my personal life, has made a huge difference, is that I can do now way, way, way more than I did before. I'm still having to do a lot, but now I can do way, way more, but also in just more efficiently.
Yeah.
And the boring stuff I don't need to do. And that to me has been the biggest kind of bonus, really. It's setting things up in a way that I'm still involved, but I don't have to do the boring stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. We will look at it next year. I can't believe we're nearly at the end of this year.
I know. I was just about to say Christmas is what,
Yeah.
3 weeks away? No, yeah, 3 weeks away today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Blimey. Crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely mad. Look, Sally, I think you've given me an enormous amount of food for thought, if you like, here. Running so many businesses, I thought I was a busy person and doing too many things sometimes, but I think you've trumped that mindset, and I believe I could probably do more now. I popped in your mindset.
I wouldn't advise it. No. I think it's just, lurching from one chaotic situation to the next. Yeah.
No, I don't think you. Do you ever? I think a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, we've got this kind of condition, if you want to call it that, where we are always looking for the next thing. We're always looking forward. But seldom do we actually pause and think. Actually, hang on a minute. It's all good that I've not done this, I've not done that. We're so negative to each other. We push each other. We push ourselves so much.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of kind of training to actually look back and really just actually appreciate what you've actually done to get to where you are.
Yeah. I think most entrepreneurs have imposter syndrome, don't they? And just, it is. I think it's actually when you sit down for things like podcasts and you talk through, that's when you think, okay, maybe I have done quite a lot. But it just feels, I think, especially when you have kids and things, you just want the best for them. So I would say everything I've done is for my family. It's not, because I don't think there's not a lot of gratitude for running businesses, for small business entrepreneurs. Day to day, it's a grind, as it is for anyone doing any job, actually. I think we all idolize what we want to do as children, and it's going to be amazing. But actually, day-to-day grind for everyone is the same. But I just think, you just, if you're resilient enough, if something's not working, you change it and you move on, and you hate the word pivot because it's been overused so much. That's what we do, isn't it? And I think the pandemic was a really interesting time. I sit on the board of a group called Produced in Kent, which is food and drink within Kent. We have about 340 members, and just listening to their stories through the pandemic and how they pivoted and how they got through it. I think the food industry is an incredible industry to be in, and I think we have to be resilient because it's ever evolving and ever changing, and there's always somebody else coming up behind you. And so when I also, about every 6 months, I go and sit an innovation course that Kent and Medway run, and they have about 30 sort of innovators, entrepreneurs that they take on and put through a course. And I go and sit, there's probably about 4 of us as food producers, go and sit and just have a day with them. And it's really interesting, just the ideas that people come up with and what is happening in that food space. It's an interesting industry to be in, but it's also really hard. There's a much easier way to make money, I think, than being in the food industry.
I know, but then is the love and repression there? That's the only issue. I think the food industry tends to attract a certain kind of person that's not necessarily money-led, because I think if you're purely money-led, then of course you would not survive, right? But there's just something about the food industry, hospitality, drink. There's just something more. Maybe because you're dealing with things that have been around since millennia, right? You're dealing with things that are very much linked to our survival. So there's just something in there that drives us that you don't find for maybe other industries. So. Again, talking about trade-offs, that's the trade-off, isn't it? You work in the food industry, you've got an incredible amount of kind of satisfaction and sense of purpose and creativity and all kinds of stuff that goes with it. With that also goes enormous pressure, small margins, a difficult road ahead. At the same time, you've been through the hard part, I think, Sally, and you've got the infrastructure now to really get yourself out there. So I think we talked about it before, but you just need a good sales kind of growth engine that's going to be there working in the background 24/7 is what you need these days to just get those numbers up, because you've got everything else, it seems, to cater for it. You've set up the infrastructure, you've got a great brand, you've got your distribution, you've got a good team, you've got everything you need. You just need to just drive sales. And there's ways to do that don't take too much time and cost too much money either.
We will see.
Thank you, Sally, for joining me. What an inspiring journey across food, hospitality, and innovation. If you're listening, make sure to check out Simply Ice Cream and My Doctor's Recipe, 2 brilliant brands with passion and purpose. This episode has been brought to you by Embrace AI Consultancy, and we look forward to the next one. If you enjoyed this conversation, please do leave a review, click to subscribe, and share with all your friends. Anything else you wanted to add, Sally, before we go?
I don't think so. I think we've covered quite a lot.
We have. Thank you, Sally. I really appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.